I'm going to say that one more time. I want to welcome everyone to this webinar, whether you're joining us live or you're watching the recording. Thank you for the important work that you do in working with families in the perinatal period and with grieving families. So I just want to first introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name's Kylie Hanisch, and I'm the founder of Return to Zero Hope. And my son Norbert was stillborn in 2005. He had a liver cyst that burst in the late into the third trimester, and we didn't know that it was there or what was happening. And so when that happened, I felt that I immediately went into shock. I also received pretty substandard care, both from my OB and from the staff at the hospital. And so when something like this happens, of course, you're not expecting it as a parent. And I think that because I didn't have anybody on my medical team guiding me through what needed to be done, what was going to happen, what could be done, to make this experience as beautiful as possible, even though it was tragic. It was just all horrible. And I think the trauma of my experience with providers and in the hospital compounded the trauma of losing my child. And so that's really why I'm so passionate about talking about this topic. Is I believe that if we can help create confidence in you as providers to provide care towards parents going through the loss of their child, then that they can better support parents going through this loss. And then also at the same time, I'm very passionate about empowering parents about what they can do, because they may not get medical providers who have had training in this area and they don't know what to do. And so hopefully by doing both, we can help these parents have a better experience. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but if you have questions, and we'll have time for questions at the end, because I want this to also be a type of a workshop, like how can we problem solve what's going on in your facility? What do you need help with? What are other people doing who are on this call and can share? And so I'm gonna talk. If you have questions, use the chat box, please. So it's just me, and it's hard to manage different boxes. So I'm just gonna use the chat box right now. So I will share my screen, and any questions, just let me know. And then we will have time at the end, but if it's pertinent to what we're talking about, please don't hesitate to ask. I don't mind stopping because I know I'd rather have a conversation. Okay, so first, these are just some learning objectives that we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to look at perinatal loss, the frequency and the types of it. How do we compassionately communicate a diagnosis, whether it's their baby has died in utero, there's something wrong with the baby and the baby is not going to live, whether it's in utero or after birth. Preparing parents for whatever is going to happen, a procedure, labor and delivery, if their baby's going to die, how are we preparing them? And then guiding parents through rituals associated with parenting a baby who is stillborn. So what is perinatal loss? And I'm sure most of you have an idea in your head what this is, but I'm just opening up the definition to be a little bit broader than things that we generally think of. Okay, it could be miscarriage, stillbirth, or neonatal death. But just opening it up. It can be more inclusive. And I'm including in here as well terminations. So I feel that if a person terminates a pregnancy and it's for medical reasons, the moment they find out that something is wrong with their baby is, they get abnormal results. And there's an emotional similarity to finding out that your baby's died, that your baby's heart has stopped beating. So I'm including that in here. And then I'm putting in here also termination for non-medical reasons. We're not going to be talking about that, but that is a type of pregnancy loss. So looking at the statistics, you may know most of these, right? But just looking at how common this is, stillbirth is, how even more common miscarriage is. And then looking at what are the rates in the Black community, right? The rates are disproportionately higher. So Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth or of birth-related complications. Stillbirth happens twice as much in Black moms as all other races combined, and premature birth and often infant death, those rates are twice as high in Black infants as well. So just really being aware of this and bringing it into the conversation, and talking about, like, why is this happening? And it's that what they're finding is it's due to weathering, or we're talking about chronic stress on Black women, and also implicit bias, right, in the healthcare system, that they're being treated differently. Black women are often not taken seriously. They're not listened to by their doctors. They are perceived to have a higher tolerance of pain, so they maybe aren't receiving the same pain management as other women. And looking at just like the systemic racism. I know this has all been in conversation lately, but I'm just bringing it up again on a very small level, just to bring awareness to it. And so I did want to just put in here, on the Return to Zero Hope website, we have 2 webinars that you can access for free. And we also have a bunch of information, whether it's links to videos, links to articles, just information about Black infant mortality, grieving as a Black parent on our website. So there, I will send you all the PowerPoint, so you'll have this link that you can access that. So I encourage you to watch that. It's just for some really good information and opening ourselves up to learning about that. Okay, so this is a video of Melinda, and she is on our board, and she had a very traumatic birth situation. So in her instance, she had a partial ectopic pregnancy, and she kept saying, something's not right. I only feel the baby on this one side. And she went, well into the 2nd trimester. And so she's just going to talk about the importance of listening to mothers.
I am a maternal death survivor, and I believe strongly that part of the reason I am still here is to speak the story for others and to say that you need to listen to mothers, and you need to say what is going on that's different in your pregnancy that was happening before, because it's definitely there were a few times where I warned my doctors about something wasn't right. Something is different about this pregnancy, and I got a lot of pushback. This is just normal. You're a first-time mom. This is to be expected. It's normal baby movement, et cetera, et cetera. We need to be heard, and that will help us prevent future maternal deaths. Listening to mothers will help prevent future maternal deaths.
So just to comment on that video, there's not much to add there, but just reminding you that as healthcare providers, you went into your job to care for people, and you want to do a good job and take care of people. But we need to listen to moms when they know their body and they know their baby, and just reminding you about that. Because a lot of moms, and if you are a mother, like, you have that intuition, and sometimes people are over worried, but sometimes it's they're accurate and they can tell something's not right. And so just, honoring that and listening to them. So looking at when we're going to communicate a life-limiting or fatal diagnosis, right? So if we're doing the ultrasound and we find there's no heartbeat, or we find there is something wrong. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So first of all, just bringing this out there, we want to validate all losses, no matter how long a woman is pregnant, right? So some of us may think, well, a miscarriage isn't as horrible as a stillbirth. Miscarriages happen all the time, but this is a loss to a mom, and we may not know how many other losses she has had, right? It may not just be one loss, and it may be just one loss, and for that person, that it impacts that person in an individual way. And also remembering that when a woman becomes pregnant, she transitions into a role as a mother. It's when she opens up her heart to the idea of becoming a mother. She gets pregnant, she becomes a mother, and the attachment starts at that point. And it's often hard with these type of losses because the child often hasn't lived outside the womb, and so society doesn't necessarily validate and recognize that as a person, and there's confusion about, why is this person grieving so much? Why are they so sad? And so just knowing that we don't know their history, that each person experiences their loss, their grief on an individual level. And it's also not the death of just a baby, but it's also the death of all these hopes and dreams for their future. When you get pregnant, you start planning everything. Your life is changing. And so when the baby dies, all of that changes. All of that is different. And we go into a shock, and it's like, oh, now we need to turn and pivot into some alternate universe that we never expected to be in. Just really being validating of where people are, and showing compassion for them. So this is a video from Return to Zero, the movie. Right, let me go back. And this, my husband Sean, he wrote and directed this movie. It's based on our experience with our son Norbert, but it's a feature film starring Minnie Driver in it, and she was nominated for an Emmy for her performance. She's amazing, and you can learn more about the film on our website as well. But this is a scene where she finds out the baby doesn't have a heartbeat. And I just wanted to really bring us into the moment to what this experience is like for a woman.
Did you have caffeine today?
No, I'm a little nervous.
It's okay.
Oh.
It happens. It happens. Just take it again a little later. A little more relaxed.
Okay.
All right. Let's see how this little guy's doing today.
He's not so little anymore.
Okay. I'm sure you're anxious to meet him.
I have no idea.
Oh, I do. I have 3. He's hiding from me. You know what? I think this one is broken. I'm gonna go get a different one, okay?
Oh,
Right back.
okay.
Alrighty.
You got another one?
Do.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Take 2.
What's going on?
Yeah, I'm gonna go get the doctor. All right?
Hey, what's happening?
Maggie,
Hi.
just lie back, please.
Okay. What's going on?
Just need to take a better look. Okay, there's the head.
Great. What's going on? What's happening?
Keep breathing, you're doing fine.
How is he? Hey, please, will you tell me what's happening? Dr. Campbell, please, will you tell me what's happening?
Maggie, I can't find the baby's heartbeat.
Oh, no, he's fine. He's hiding. Just check it again.
I did. The baby doesn't have a heartbeat. I'm so sorry, Maggie.
But that's impossible because I can feel him kicking, right? And I can feel him kicking me.
I'm so sorry,
Okay. Just let me see him. Just let me see him.
Maggie.
Okay, let me see him on the screen.
Maggie.
Do it so I can see him on the screen.
Maggie. Your baby's dead.
No! Come on!
Do you understand
No!
what I'm saying? Did you come with anyone?
No!
Want us to call your husband?
He's in a meeting!
I'm so sorry.
Please! Okay. This is crazy. No. Okay, hold on a minute. Just hold on a minute. We can just try it again. Just give me a minute with him, okay? Just give me a minute now. Come on, baby, come on!
So that's a rough scene to watch. So I'm just going to encourage you to take a minute, to take a couple deep breaths. You know, take a sip of water or tea or coffee to bring you back into the space. And if you're triggered and it was too much, if you need to take a break, You can come back and watch the recording later. Or just take a break and come back in a few minutes. So whatever you need to do to tend to yourself, just do that and honor that within yourself. Okay. So we're going to talk about when an ultrasound doesn't have a heartbeat. Some of you may be the person doing this, and for some of you it may not apply. And but perhaps you can pass this information on to other people that you work with. So I think that the ultrasound can be very traumatic, right? When there's no heartbeat. I mean, of course it can, but how can we make this a better experience? So first of all, just showing compassion towards them and being calm. Being honest with the parent, saying, like, I can't find a heartbeat. I'm going to get a doctor. Or I'm concerned about what I see, and I would like to have a doctor take a better look. This must be really scary for you, but we're here with you. So instead of ignoring what's going on or showing fear, even though it's a really scary experience, telling them, like, I'm here, this is what I'm doing, and we're here for you. So they're not caught in a free fall. Okay. Tell them how long you're going to be gone. Like, how long are they going to have to wait before the doctor comes? And also, if there's a screen, whether it's a screen on a wall or a screen like this one that we see here, you can ask, would you like me to turn the screen off? Right? So they're not looking at their dead baby, because that's also very scary. So giving them small choices and giving them information when possible. And when the doctor's back in the room, asking, would you like to see your baby on the screen again? Would you like some additional pictures? Oftentimes, there's not a rush, so we are able to do that. Instead of just, oh, your baby doesn't have a heartbeat. Oh my gosh, we need to rush you to the hospital or whatever it is. And just really remaining calm, going slow, because the parent is in shock. And then also just some other things, like say that you're sorry. Offer to hold her hand or put a hand on her shoulder. If she's alone, right, ask if you can call someone for her. Like, do you want me to call your spouse? Do you need me to call a family member or a friend? Because she's in shock, right? And then if she's alone, she doesn't know what to do. I mean, for my own self, I remember asking, what am I supposed to do? Like, I just had no idea what was going to happen. And I was not given any responses or guidance. So that just adds to the fear. And then if there's other children in the room, what can your staff do to distract them, to take them to a different place where they can maybe draw or play with toys? Like, what's possible? And thinking ahead about this, like, when this situation happens, what can we have for other children? Because the parents, like, the children don't need to see the parents traumatized in that moment. I mean, the parents may want them there, but they may not. They may need a minute to figure out what's going on and what the plan is. And perhaps there's someone at your office who, when this happens, they come in and they're more like the moral support, emotional support. So that's just something to think about. What not to do. So I mentioned this, like, don't act as if this is a problem. Don't try to change the subject. focus on what's happening. They're not going to forget what's happening, right? And they need guidance. So just being really open and honest with them. If you have a situation where the person is pregnant with twins, triplets, this is a unique situation. So, number one, don't act like nothing's happened and only focus on the living baby. Okay? Because again, they know that their baby's died. It's still their baby. They love their baby. And you can offer to have them look at the baby who's died on the screen. You can offer to provide them with pictures, right? Because this is, in some cases, this is the last time they'll see their baby as their baby is now. And appearance oftentimes will change of that baby if depending on where they are in the pregnancy. And so just really honoring that baby, act like it's a live baby. That's what I would say, is even though the baby's not alive, act as if it's live. And honoring the baby, honoring the parent's experience. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about what parents experience when they're told that their baby has died or has a life-limiting diagnosis. So oftentimes they go into shock and disbelief. I mean, that definitely happened for me. Anticipatory grief, so worrying about, what are they going to feel like? What they've experienced this loss, but it hasn't really hit them yet. And so what is that going to be like? Fear and anxiety, right? Fear of what is going to happen. Oh my gosh, my baby died. I have to deliver the baby sometimes, right? Or it could be, I've made a choice to carry the baby to term and then provide palliative care, but then I have to watch my baby die. And fear of the unknown, like what is all this going to look like? Oftentimes this is not a situation we've been in before. And so there's a lot of anxiety around that. Having to make impossible decisions, right? Making the decision to perhaps terminate a pregnancy or carry the pregnancy to term. Or if they're at the end of the pregnancy and the baby's born with a problem, making the decision, am I going to provide medical intervention and try to extend my baby's life, not knowing what that's going to look like? Or am I going to provide palliative care because I believe that that's what's most compassionate? Or do I want an autopsy? Or do I want to cremate my baby or bury him or her? Decisions that, we would never expect to be making in a situation where we expect a live baby to be born. And then second guessing their decisions. What is the right choice? And oftentimes there is no right choice. You're making the best decision you can at the time with the information that you have. But there will always be second guessing decisions. And in this, I just want to say that parents' experience is individual, and the way they respond to learning their baby's died or will die, or there's a problem, is going to vary by person. And so these are some of the things that are generally seen, but everybody's different, and it's not going to be the same. And I would just say, as caregivers, try to have empathy, compassion, and patience for these parents who are going through this time of unfathomable grief, loss, stress. So when you're talking to parents about what is wrong, what has happened, I would say give them information both verbally and written. They need time to process. They're not going to remember what you say. You can encourage them to also take notes, to audio record something that you're saying, so they can look at that at a later time, when they're alone, and they can process things. So I would say, can you meet in a place that's not the examining room? Do you have an office that you could bring them into? And speaking to them in layman's terms, like not using a lot of medical jargon, because that's going to further confuse them, but speaking to them so that they understand. Sometimes it's helpful to have a third person there, if possible, to take notes or to act as an advocate. But also respecting their privacy. So asking them, do you have another person that you could bring with you? Or do you want one of our staff members to stay in here and take notes? Giving them that option. Because, right, they're in shock, their brains are not absorbing the information. Then also repeating yourself at different points, because they are not going to remember it. And just keep saying the same thing. If you need to ask something multiple times, or tell them, yeah, it's because it's not absorbing in to their brain. And also just really valuing and respecting their decisions, having them, encouraging them to still have hope. Don't take that away from them, that they can have some light in this darkness, and that's what we want to help them find. And then following up with them, it's depending on what the situation is, but can you follow up and call them, or someone on your team? And I'm not saying necessarily after the stillbirth or the death, even though we will talk about that later, but just after the diagnosis is made and they're going home and need time to process and make decisions, like checking back in with them and just seeing what they need. So we're gonna watch another video. This is Dr. Carla Iocampo, and she's just gonna talk about the importance of providers repeating themselves when talking to parents who are in a stressful and shocking situation.
Bad news, whether it's that their baby has died or they have cancer or something, their mind glazes over and they're going to lose at least 50% of what you just said. And so I find myself repeating myself, which I sound like I'm that broken record. I'll call and check on them. I'll repeat myself when I see them again in the hospital. But I really want them to know, if they've got a question, write it down, because their brain is going to be Teflon coated for a while, and they need to understand that that's normal, because a lot of them feel like that's abnormal for them to have that reaction, and frankly it would be abnormal if they didn't have that reaction.
So I'll just say really quick, because I don't think I said this before, is these videos I'm showing, I have the link at the end of the presentation, but we have a whole video project that's connected to YouTube, and we have different playlists. And so there's a lot of really great information on there for providers about different scenarios and different situations. And I just encourage you to watch it. And they're short clips. We made them all under 2 minutes. So you can go in there and pick and choose what interests you and what you want to learn more about. So here in supporting parents in this situation, right? Their baby has died, or will be stillborn, or they may die after birth. So showing empathy and compassion, of course. Referring to the fetus, like never saying fetus and never saying fetal death, even though those are the medical terms that you might need to use, but always referring to them as a baby, as your child, and calling the baby by name if possible. Asking, did you name your baby? Or what is your baby's name? And just, again, respecting that child as if it is a living child. And then don't assume anything. So don't assume, like, let's say there's a life-limiting diagnosis. Don't assume that they're going to terminate the pregnancy. Don't assume they're going to carry it to term. Encourage them really to take the time and research the options and make the choice that feels best for them, even though both choices are bad, right? No one wants to be in this situation. They're heartbreaking decisions that they have to make, but giving them permission to take time to do their work and make the best choice for them. And then I just really encourage you not to share or put your own beliefs on them, right? Like you may think, or you may have done something in your own life that is one way of doing things, but knowing that each person is individual and they have their own set of beliefs and values and culture, and just respecting that they get to make their own decision, and really supporting them in whatever decision that they make. If you have the option of offering counseling or a social worker, I would do that as well. Or again, one person on your team, this is their job, is they come in, just knowing ahead of time, like, who's going to talk to the parents. And the other thing is, a lot of times parents worry about, let's say they're in a situation where their baby is going to die after birth. And, making sure the parents know that their baby's not going to suffer, and talking about what your team is going to do to make their baby as comfortable as possible, and just making them feel secure about that. So the next thing I want to talk about is preparing parents. So I really believe that by explaining what is going to happen, that you're decreasing some of the fear and anxiety about the unknown. Because in a situation where everything is out of control, they have no control, there is a lot of fear and anxiety. And so giving parents as many choices as possible, and when they can't make a decision, making the choices even smaller. And they may be choices that don't make a difference at all. It could be, do you want to lay on your right side or your left side? Do you want water or do you want juice? Like, they may have nothing to do with the delivery or their baby, but really empowering them where possible. So preparing for procedures that are going to happen, whether it's a D&C, a D&E, a C-section, a labor induction, if it's a stillbirth, really, again, explaining what's going to happen, written, verbally, repeating yourself. The goal is here to, give them control, give them choices, decrease patient trauma. And knowing that trauma is really individual, right? Like, if you've read any of Cheryl Beck's articles, there's one that I love called Trauma is in the Eye of the Beholder, really. So it's just saying that what's traumatic for one person may not be seen as traumatic for another person, but we have to honor that in each person, that they have their own experience. So in addition to explaining things, we want to really make sure the parents are comfortable, whether it's on a physical, right? Physical level, like, do you need a blanket? What is the temperature like in the room? Do you need food? Like, who's looking after the parents? And also looking after the partner. If the mom is in the hospital bed, usually, right? But what about the partner? Someone needs to look at him or her as well. And I would also say, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but giving parents some advance warning and permission to parent their child. Saying, like, this is the only time you're going to get with your baby. A lot of other parents have found it helpful to do these certain things, which we will talk about. And also preparing parents for what the baby is going to look like. How long has the baby been dead? Has their appearance change? And because that is also something that parents are going to fear, is just, what is their baby going to look like? Okay. So also looking at if the baby will die shortly after birth, right? So do the parents have any wishes for their child? A lot of times people want to take their baby outside to see the sun once, sun or the moon. And so is there a way that you can make this happen for the parents? Usually it is helpful if you can create a private space for the parents where they're not interrupted. They have a private space, is peaceful if possible, right? Like, maybe there's a window, there's something on the door, both in a situation of a stillbirth or an infant death, but something on the door letting other people know that something has happened inside of there. That's not normal, right? And not to come in and say, oh, how's your baby? Because even people that are not the doctors or nurses, it could be someone bringing the food, someone cleaning the room, things like that, and they don't know and they say something, it just triggers the parent. And just offering is, do they want to play music for the baby? Do they want to take photos? I mean, a lot of people, right, have their smartphones and they can take photos there, but can you call Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep? If you have access to photographers in the area, or maybe there's a different baby photography group that your hospital works with, and can you offer them photos? And then preparing the parents for what are the typical behaviors of a baby who is dying. Again, knowing, what is this going to look like, taking some of the fear out of it so they feel a little bit more in control, and assuring the parents that the baby won't be suffering. So then looking at reducing regrets and creating healing experiences in the hospital, right? So the care they receive during this time will impact them for the rest of their lives. And so we want to create the best experience possible so they feel safe, they feel as in control as possible, and we want to decrease trauma. Going back. So first of all, I wanted to share on our website, we have a page, you can see at the top menu bar, it's at the hospital. This is a guide for that time in the hospital, right? When their baby has died in utero and will be stillborn, or if their baby was born alive but is not expected to live. So we have this on the website. We have it in a variety of languages. We also have it in really beautiful printed brochures that you can order off our website. But this is great information. This is great information for the parents. This is stuff that I would have loved to know, that this was normal. It normalizes the experience for parents. And because having a baby who has died or will die is very scary. And so giving them ideas of what is helpful has been helpful for other parents. So this is something that could also be great for your staff, something that you can share and the nurses can use as a guide to offer the parents. So I encourage you to check that out. So there's the link to the At the Hospital page. And again, just down at the end of the hall, and they're away from other families. And these are other things that I've already said, but helping the parents to create a modified birth plan. You know, they're still going to deliver their baby, but what do they want this to look like now that the circumstances have changed? So this is Amanda. No, this is Allison. This is Allison, and her baby Amelia was stillborn, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience with memory making in the hospital.
They suggested in the hospital, especially the nurses, that we spend as long as we wanted to with Amelia, hold her and have different people hold her. We didn't dress her. I didn't want to dress her. She was so small. They definitely had special blankets that had been crocheted and donated, and we held her in the blanket, and then underneath that blanket I had a blanket that I had made for Amelia that we had friends bring to the hospital because I had just finished it a few weeks prior and it was her blanket. So all the pictures from Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep have her with her blanket, her whale blanket underneath, and we buried her in her blanket too. So I only have scraps of that fabric, but the blanket is preserved in the pictures, which is really special.
So I think it's helpful for you as a health provider to see and hear from parents who have been through this situation and just, you know, what their experience is like, right? It's one thing for me to talk about it, even share my own experience, but it's good to hear other people's experiences. So making memories in the hospital with the baby. So really, I just want to stress that you are their guide. This is part of your responsibility as a health provider. In this situation, they need a guide. They did not expect to be here. They do not know what to do. And this is why you're here today, right? To learn more about how to be a better guide, how to be confident in being a guide. And this is a lot on your shoulders. And I know that. But if you can feel more confident, you can support these families and really impact them forever. You know, like even if it's a sad, horrible thing that's happened, that how can we make this experience as beautiful as possible? And so we want to normalize the experience for them. Again, the At the Hospital sheet does that. We know that this is the only time they're going to have with their baby, right? The only time. It's a very short amount of time. Whether it's an hour, a few hours, a day or so, it is not a long time in the realm of what a life looks like. So we want to give the family as much time as possible. You know, we want to help reduce future regrets. Someone may say no, like, no, I don't want to hold my baby. No, I don't want to take pictures. No, I don't want to do this or that. Offer it to them again in a very compassionate way, because they may say no instinctively because they're scared. This is not normal for them. Just continue to offer. Don't pressure them, but you can repeat yourself. And, you know, as I said, we can discuss photographs, like normalizing that. A lot of parents like to take pictures of their babies. You don't have to look at it. You know, you can keep it on your computer in a folder that you don't look at. You can put the pictures in a box away, you know, but a lot of times in this moment of shock, they don't know what to do. So it's helpful to have those as an option. Creating memorial items and healing experiences. So, which I'm gonna go into this on the next slide. But really just your job as a guide, and you're here to support the parents, and just letting them know that, right? Like, I'm here to support you. I will take care of you. These things can be helpful. They're helpful to other parents. So here are some ideas on how a parent can parent their baby. So naming the baby, right? Giving the baby a name. Having skin-to-skin contact, rocking, holding, kissing, cuddling, bathing, putting on a diaper and clothes, singing and reading to the baby. You might want to ask, like, would you like to see the hospital chaplain, or do you have a faith leader that you'd like to bring in and do some type of blessing or baptism? Again, giving them choices. And again, here I would say is, if you remember one thing, treat the deceased baby as if it was a live baby, right? Like, we would do all this with a baby who was alive. And even though that might sound crazy to someone else, like, you're going to do that with your baby who's died, give them a bath, put a diaper on, all that. But really, that is what we're doing. We're giving this life, this family, respect. And it is very helpful if they do these things to make memories in this very short time. It's their only time, right? And that's what we're trying to do, is making memories that this baby is real to them. Yes, cuddle cot. So I was going to mention, so sometimes a hospital will have a cuddle cot, which is a cooling system, it's electronic, you plug it in, and it's a cooling system. It keeps the baby's body cooler and allows for the baby to stay in the room longer, because it slows down the decomposition and just the changing appearance of the body. The same can be done with ice, although it's not as, I would say, clean that way, right? Because the ice is melting. But if there's, if you don't have a cuddle cot, you can use ice or ice packs. It just allows for the baby to stay in the room longer. I think that cuddle cots are a great option. It allows for you to have more time with your baby. I know that there are some issues within a hospital, more in like the infectious disease, but the baby's not alive, so that shouldn't matter too much. So I think that part I can't speak to too much. Do you have a specific question, Rachel? Does your hospital have one, or are you thinking about getting one? I guess, and does anyone here have a cuddle cot in their hospital and want to share their experience? Okay, so you're saying it's, having heard that can be a closure to actual see the baby beginning to not look like a baby. It's signaling more of a time to say goodbye. I mean, I think that the parents, I think as a provider, you can say to the parents, you'll know when the right time to say goodbye to your baby is. because they will know, like when the baby starts to change and it's too much for them. Like that's one thing that really scared me. I was like, I don't want to see that. But also I had no one guiding me or explaining what was going to happen. Gina, Gina says, we love giving parents the book, Wherever You Are, My Love Will Find You, and to read to their baby, and many read it at their memorial or funeral. Thank you, Gina. Maybe I'll link to that in when I send out the email. So I'm gonna write that down. And then Rachel, you do have a cuddle cot, but there's very opinions about the benefit. I think you offer it to the parents. I don't think you push it on the parents. I think you offer it. I personally think it's helpful. So I didn't have the use of one, but I feel that any parent who has used it has found it to be helpful. Anna Lucia, we have a reflection room where parents may go to have a private space, but never heard of a cuddle cot. So I'm going to put an info about the cuddle cot. Yeah, and so yeah, a lot of times, right? Okay, so Gina's saying like if we're waiting for family members to come to meet the baby, and we need to keep the baby, other than keeping the baby in the morgue and bringing the baby out, which is an option. That this is a nice way to keep the baby in the room with them. I'm also going to say here that when it's time to say goodbye to the baby, right? So giving the parents the empowering, like that's their decision. Like you'll know when it's the right time to say goodbye to the baby. But also, how is that going to happen? How are you taking the baby out of a room? So I will share my horrific experience of they put my baby, not a baby, they put my baby in a cardboard box in front of me and took him out of the room like he was a piece of trash. I've heard them putting babies, even recently, in those plastic My Belongings bags and taking the baby to the morgue that way. And that is not acceptable. That is not honoring this baby. This is not honoring the family. So I would say different options would be you let the parents choose. Like, how would you like me to carry the baby out? And explaining what's going to happen to the baby after that. Like, where are they going to go? How is that going to happen? Maybe they're in a bassinet or in the cuddle cot and you wheel the baby out that way. And then when their baby's out of the room, then you can put them in whatever container they need to be in to take them to the morgue. Parents have the option in a lot of states to take their baby home. And so giving them that option, that may be freaky to some people, but explaining in that situation, what does this look like? You have this option. Do you need to have mortuary to release the baby to go home with you? That type of stuff. But what are the options? But again, like, not putting the baby in any type of box or bag in front of somebody. I also heard a story from one of our nurses on our advisory board that in their hospital, they were on a different floor. The parents had been moved with the baby to a different floor, like the women's floor or something. And they said, when you're done with your baby, just leave it on the bed. And then, so they left the deceased baby on the bed and left. And that is traumatic. Like, you can't do that. Like, I mean, unless that's what the parents want, but you need to ask the parents, like, and give them options. Like, these are options. What would you like? Because of course they're not going to know what to do, but it's horrible. This is a horrible thing. Gina's sharing with us, it helps staff cope better with the loss to not have to put the baby in something, but to carry it or bring the bassinet to the morgue. It makes all the difference for staff too. thanks, Gina, for sharing that. Yeah, like, yeah, and we'll do, this just reminds me so much that we need some information on self-care for staff, right? Because this is traumatic for you. That's not what we're talking about today, but that we do need to do on something for that. But yeah, like the choices we're making, what is also best for the staff? Because they are experiencing a secondary trauma. So thank you all for sharing. I'm gonna go ahead and move along, but we can just feel free to jump in the chat box if you have other questions. And we'll have time at the end. So this is Elise. She's a therapist here in LA, and she's just going to talk a little bit about the importance of parenting your child.
I think it's really important for families in the hospital to give themselves time to actually parent their child. To create an identity for that child is incredibly helpful in the beginning of the grieving process, to give baby an identity, to give baby a name, to spend time holding baby and having that shared experience of being able to parent together. One of the things that's so interesting is that when we talk about parents and what they remember of their experiences in the hospital, it is the willingness of the hospital to allow them as much time as they would with any other baby. And I think, encouraging providers to understand that this is their baby and that they do deserve the opportunity to parent for as long as it takes. I think it's really...
Sorry, guys. And I also wanted to share another video. This is Sharon. She had a baby who was stillborn, but she also works at a hospital as an infant loss specialist. And she's going to talk about siblings, because if the family have siblings, we often don't know what's appropriate for children. Parents don't know what to do. And so just to listen to her, what her thoughts are on it, and be able to share that with parents who may have a family this is not their first child.
My daughter was 2 years old when we lost our son, and it was hard to know what part she would play. Was she too young to be in the room to meet her baby brother? And one of the things that was really important is for us to be able to include her, but to make sure that we weren't hurting her in any capacity. What I've learned in all my years of working with families is that it's so important to give the child the option and the choice, and so many times they will decide if they want to meet. And really, my greatest advice would be always give the option, and it's astounding to see how the wisdom in a child will decide if they're ready for that step. And if they aren't, they would just say, nope, I don't want to meet my brother or sister, and that's totally okay. Whatever's right for you and your family is the thing that needs to be done. For my own daughter, she remembers that day, and it'll forever be a part of who she is and how important it was to meet her brother on that day. I think parents are always afraid that the child might be too young to understand what's going on, but the child will understand different aspects of it, and there's so many little rituals that you can do, whether it's reading a book with both your children on your lap and just giving an experience like that, or just giving them the option to maybe take a look at their little brother or sister. And so oftentimes the children are going to go off what the parents are gently guiding, and it's if you're comfortable holding, then your child is going to feel comfortable holding and being a part of that. So it really is setting up what you need, and there is no wrong in any of this. It really is kind of dictating what is right for you and your family during these moments.
So we also have a page on our website in the parent section for siblings that has more information about that if you want to look at that or share it with parents. So I'm just going to go quickly over some do's and don'ts. Like, what do we say and what do we not say? So I think it's important to know that we don't want to, this is a bad situation, and we don't want to offer, try to be false positive here, like everything's going to be fine or everything happens for a reason. And just really being compassionate, meeting people where they are, not imposing your own beliefs on this family, that this is their own journey, and try not to judge or give advice. Again, just being like a loving presence there as a guide. And don't compare losses, right? So I'm not sure when that would come up, but if it came up, just like, oh, this is not as bad as this, or this is worse than so-and-so's loss, or I had a loss as well, but mine's not as bad as your, whatever. So just like really trying to remain neutral and loving. And here are some things that people say, but these are not helpful things. So I think that there's a difference between intent and action, right? Like the intention is often good. We want to make someone feel better. But within that, words can be hurtful. And even though these are things that you might believe to be true, and some people may say them later on in their journeys, like it's not going to be helpful to say them. They actually just, when this person is hurting, they just need to be where they are. And so what are things that are helpful to say? So just reminding you that every word and action will have a large impact on the parents, right? So choosing your words wisely. I think these are some things you can say, but again, we're here to support and guide you. I'm so sorry for your loss, right? You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't your fault. Because oftentimes the moms will blame themselves to feel guilty, like I did something, my body failed me, my body failed my baby, that type of stuff. And Ana Lucia is asking, so what's your opinion on providers sharing that they have had a loss too? So there is a YouTube video so Dr. Aya Campo had a stillbirth herself, sharing her experience with, sometimes she shares and sometimes she doesn't. And I think that you have to use your gut intuition to determine whether that's something you want to share. And I think it may be helpful. It may be helpful because the parents will, you feel so isolated, and maybe it can help them feel a little bit less alone. So I think you just have to feel out the situation. Like, even if it's like, I've been through this too, and I'm here to support you, something like that. So it can be helpful, right? Because you're like, this, I'm the only person on this whole earth that this has happened to, right? You think it happens in the old days, but it's not. It's still happening now. So decreasing isolation is a reason to share that you have had a loss as well. But again, when you do it, that you're not comparing your loss, you're not judging them, that you're just saying, I'm here with you, you're not alone, and I'm here to support and guide you. So going home, looking at what are you sending home with parents? So first of all, I just want to share on our website, we have a directory. So we have individual support, local support groups, And then there's also another line that says national and international organizations. And the top line is done by location where you can find local support. And it's helpful, right? To find a therapist, a psychiatrist, a support group, or an organization in your area that's dedicated to pregnancy and infant loss. So that is on our website. We also have really beautiful materials that we've created to hand out to the parents when they go home. So what are you giving parents when they go home in terms of normalizing this experience? So I think we have about 13 brochures now. We have some of them in Spanish as well. They can be found on our website. We're charging for them, but basically it's just the cost of printing. So maybe you want to ask your foundation if they'll sponsor this. But what I love about these, they're modern looking, they're clean, they're beautiful, they're all bullet points, right? So when a parent has a loss, they're in shock. They cannot read paragraphs. They cannot read a book. They need bullet points to distill the information into digestible information that they can use right now. All of this information is available on the website too, but I really believe that if you're giving someone something that is printed or Xerox, it's not respecting and honoring them in their experience. So ordering the materials, just giving them something is like, I really respect you and honor you, and I'm here to support you. So they're really beautiful. That's all I'm going to say. But they're on our website as well. So if you don't have anything, you can look at these, or maybe you want to consider switching and to some of your information that you're giving out. So looking like, how often are you following up with someone? Following up with them once is not going to be enough, right? Because you have to have touch points at different points, because not knowing where they are in their grieving process. When are you following up? Okay, maybe it's a month after, but can you have a protocol for your hospital? How often? When? What, are we doing it at the, 3 months, 6 months, the anniversary date? Are we doing it by phone or by card or both? Who is responsible for doing this? Right? Is a nurse? Is there a bereavement nurse? Is there a bereavement social worker? Like, whose job is this? And when you're following up, what are you doing? Like, are you able to connect them to resources? And say like, hey, we have this support group, whether it's at your facility that someone else runs. Do you have names of local therapists who specialize in perinatal loss? Like this type of, can a few of you share what your hospital policy protocol is on following up with parents? Maybe not. Okay, I'm gonna continue to go. And if you want to share, we can come back to this. Because I'm curious, like, what are you doing at your hospital? And if you're not doing anything, then what, yeah. So Ana Lucia, you had to push for it, okay, to create a protocol. Yeah, it is a challenge. Were you able to get anything through, and what does that look like? I'm gonna ask Gina if you're still on. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing at UCLA. Yeah, thank you, Gina. It's okay. So social workers and hospital palliative care team working to present to us nurses soon. Okay, so you're in the middle of this, Ana Lucia. Okay. So I'm just gonna advocate, there needs to be multiple touch points. And you need to create, like, here's a, type up a little, like, give one of our brochures out, or multiple, whatever. Type up a local resource page. It's like a half page of an 8.5 by 11 that you can change, right? These are local therapists. These are local support groups or organizations. Links to national organizations that can be helpful. So Gina says, our social workers call during week 1 and then maybe a month later. Then I, as the bereavement social worker, follow up with the grief group support referrals. We have our own support group for UCLA families, and I refer to the Miss Foundation group or other local groups. Okay. And then I would encourage also, like, in your system, do you have a way to mark the anniversary date that you could follow up with a card? And we just created these beautiful cards. UNC Chapel Hill Women's Hospital wanted us to create a card for their staff to send out. And so it has a sweet quote on the front, and then the middle inside it says, "We remember your baby." So we created those cards for them, but that's a great thing. Like, send it out at the year anniversary. So Amanda was asking it for Ana Lucia, the resistance to the protocol, what was the reasoning behind that there was pushback or the hospital wouldn't want to set something up? And then yeah. Okay, so Ana Lucia says this is it's not a resistance, just not a coordinated effort. And yeah, I mean, we can have we can create some way to figure out a chat about this. This could probably be its own conversation. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. But it's good. And if we have time at the end, we can chat as well. So yeah, and like Gina was saying that the NICU sends cards on the baby's birthday and the anniversary of death. They have an annual memorial service where the families can come back and see. So, and sometimes, it can be like all different types of things, a candle lighting ceremony, a butterfly release, things like that. Okay, I'm gonna move on so I don't lose too many people here. I'm just gonna talk briefly about pregnancy after loss. And if you're working with someone who's had a loss and they're pregnant again delivering, what does this look like? So just being aware that most women go on to get pregnant again after a loss, okay? So chances are you will encounter people who have had a loss and are in the hospital again. You may not know that they've had a loss though, and I think it's important to ask to know whether they've had a loss, because that will change their experience for sure. But just a lot more anxiety. So this is Amy talking about creating a birth plan for the delivery of a subsequent pregnancy.
Having a pregnancy after loss can mean very different things to everybody. There's no one size fits all with how a person will react to that pregnancy. Some people are hyper attached to that baby, and some people are super detached from that baby. Once again, there's no right or wrong, it just is. Pregnancy after loss can feel really terrifying. And so it's really important, especially as you near delivery, that you have your birth plan, like your actual birth plan as you would with any other pregnancy, but really a specialized birth plan that you've discussed with your care provider so that you know exactly what you're walking into. Some things to include on that are you going to participate in a birth class? Will it be a traditional birth class with other families? Do you need more individualized care? Previewing the hospital, discussing, do you want a different room than what you had before? But some families want the same room to create a more positive memory or to have, some attachment to their baby that has passed away. Pain management, every pregnancy and every delivery is different, but it's important to revisit that choice every time. Walking into a hospital when you're in labor can feel very terrifying. You're reliving an experience you already had, most likely, and you need to decide what kind of physical pain are you capable of holding along with the emotional experience that you will be having. Visitors is also really important. So the support that you have while you're in labor, who do you want in the hospital room with you? Will you have family? Will you have a mother or mother-in-law, a trusted, doula or midwife? Or do you want it very private, just you and your partner or you and a birth coach? Also, visitors after the baby is born, when you lose a baby, your whole community really does grieve with you. They mourn that loss for you. If they could, they would take that pain away. And so when the birth of another baby comes, without understanding, many times they think you're going to be okay now. They don't realize all of the extra emotions that go with that. And so knowing if you're ready to have visitors to meet that baby is something that needs to be considered. And it's important to discuss all those things with your OB. It's important to discuss those things with the nurses on duty so that they can act as kind of, the middle person between a person coming up to check in to postpartum to visit with you, and they can, either prep that person for what to expect or say, I'm really sorry they're not accepting visitors at this time, and allow them to carry that so that you don't have to. Your job when you have a baby is to bond with your baby and to be present in that moment. You don't have to worry about what the other people, are wanting to have happen. So it's really important to have these discussions. It's important to think about them before you're in the moment. It's also okay that when you have a birth plan, my OB called it a birth wish. We want things to go a certain way, but we have to be flexible to know that, number one, we can't control everything, but number two, sometimes our decisions change when we're in the moment. What you think you might want might be different when it comes down to it. So it's important just to start thinking about those things and having that conversation so that you at least have a framework for what to expect.
So that has a lot of good information in it, and that's also on the YouTube channel if you want to watch that again. So I'm gonna skip through these because I want to leave a little bit more time for questions, and we're basically done. But Rachel's asking, in the hospital after delivery of a subsequent pregnancy after loss, what's a good way to acknowledge and honor the babies that's passed? So some parents will bring a picture of the deceased baby, like the previous baby, and have that in the room with them. I think, talking about, like saying to the new baby, like, you have an older brother or sister, that came before you, and talking about that a little bit, but that's a little bit more on the parents' end of things. But I think I think the biggest thing is asking the parents, like, how do you want that other baby to be involved in this? So, and just for me, I will say a lot of grief resurfaced when my daughter was born. So my stillborn son was born, and then my daughter was born 14 months later. And so I didn't have a ton of time to grieve before I got pregnant again. And then I was just really trying to be aware, like, I don't want to live in a space of grief. But I was very, very anxious. And so when my daughter was born, a lot of grief came up for me, and I wasn't expecting it. And I think acknowledging that, like, this is normal for this to happen. And you're not betraying your child, the other child, by having another child, that they're separate and they're siblings. So wait, Rachel, let me just read your next comment. Sometimes I'm only aware of it because it's in the prenatal record, but I don't always know what the appropriate level of acknowledgement is. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, they're thinking about it. You could say, I've read in your record that you had a previous loss, asking them what that baby's name was. If there's anything they want to do to honor the baby. It's hard because you will get them not beforehand necessarily, right? It's like at the time. But I think the act of asking the baby's name and acknowledging them and just separating them as their siblings, they're two separate babies. And the parents, all they want to hear is their baby's name. So I think you can do that. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Here, I will send out a PDF of the slide deck. And here is just my website, my email, the website, and then the link to the video project, which is broken up into different playlists. And you can watch that and more videos there. But are there any other questions that I can answer? Gina has so graciously given out her email if you want to talk to her about what they do at their hospital regarding kind of follow-up protocol and what they give out, that type of stuff. So I'm going to stop the share here. And I'm still recording just to answer some questions. So Gina, she said, I've had several lost moms have subsequent pregnancies and deliveries and then went into severe depression as the grief resurfaced. One ended up in the ER not wanting her new baby anymore, thinking she made a mistake. We got her help, but really she was reliving so much of the loss. Yeah. Yeah, so this is normal, right? And the other thing is, if a mom has had a loss, the chances of her, the loss is a risk factor for postpartum mood and anxiety disorders in subsequent pregnancies as well. And so letting them know about that, and that postpartum depression doesn't always look like depression. It may be depression, but it may also be anxiety, which it was for me. Like, I felt like I had postpartum PTSD more than postpartum depression. And I thought, well, I wasn't crying. I'm not depressed, but really I was hypervigilant and anxious and couldn't sleep and all of that. And so, yeah, letting them know that their new baby may bring up a lot of things that you are not expecting. Yeah. So it's the combination. It's like grief and trauma and postpartum issues that are coming up. And and having a referral to a reproductive psychiatrist is really important. And if you don't have one in your area, Postpartum Support International has a directory, and we have a directory. I mean, they have more information on their directory, but having someone, and if they can do telepsychiatry, that's an option for a lot of people because we don't have options where we live. So, is there anything else anyone wants to ask? And I'm going to say, Alicia, we have some of the brochures in Spanish. So we have the When Your Baby's Died, that at the hospital thing in Spanish. We have a parent card that just says you're not alone. The parent section of our website is translated into Spanish. And we also have the Navigating Trauma brochure in Spanish, which is about mental health post-loss. Thank you, everybody. So I'm gonna end this. I will send out the recording, and I will send out a PDF of the PowerPoint. But if you need anything, just don't hesitate to reach out. And also, I should have said this at the beginning, if you need a certificate of completion, I'm happy to give that to you. I'm not able to give CEUs, but I can email you a certificate that may be helpful for you. So thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day.